It's 7 o'clock.
Was it?
Yep.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. We'll call the board meeting to order. First, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay, next is consent agenda items. Has everybody looked them over and have any comments? Any discussion?
Do we just want to give a quick recap of how this
Why
is
we're doing what
different
we're doing?
than what it has been in the past?
Right.
Because I think people who listen and watch are going to be like, wait a minute, we don't know what's going on.
So at the last board meeting, we approved a change in the way our agenda will look. The board voted to, for lack of just, combine items from the agenda that they're allowed to put as a consent agenda item, meaning we'll vote on minutes, expenditures, any donation grants, any field trip requests, and any personnel recommendations as one consent agenda item. So there'll be, we won't be reading all of that out loud.
And this will be available to the public.
If anybody wants it, yeah, they can contact my office, yes.
Any discussion? Need a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Reeves and Ms. Foster, second. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. 7-0. Next is the financial report.
The education fund balance as of March 31st, 2022 was $2,395,892.25. A year ago, this balance was $1,162,394.21. The operations fund balance as of March 31st, 2022 was a negative $53,646.21. A year ago, this balance was $1,062.82. Along with that, I would just like to point out that this, a year ago, we did a transfer from the education to operations to make that whole. We have not this year, and we have already brought this back into the positive this month due to property tax income from the county.
Do you know how much that is in the positive?
It's about $350,000, roughly, very roughly. The investment interest earned year to date as of March 31st, 2022 was $5,836.96. This is compared to $3,318.56 a year ago.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, cafeteria report.
The cafeteria fund balance as of March 31st, 2022 was $169,773.61. This is compared to $140,316.66 a year ago.
Any discussion?
Do we know what's happening for next year for
I have not heard.
school lunches, whether or
No.
not the program's being extended or not? I've heard both things.
I don't think Courtney has heard. I know that we have sent emails on behalf of our students that we remain free lunch for everyone. I just had not gotten any response. So.
Because that's going to be a big change for a lot
Yes,
of
it is.
families.
Right.
Also, I'd like to point out on this that this figure does not reflect, Courtney has not received a reimbursement since the beginning of the year. They are starting to come in now, so that's why her balance is a little bit lower than normal. She did just get one, she just received one, and it brought her into the positive, so she still has 2 more months to catch up. The latchkey fund balance as of March 31st, 2022 was $4,171.24. This is compared to $2,757.48 a year ago.
Any discussion? Okay, next is celebrations.
Yes, I would like, we're gonna be talking into the mic because that allows everyone that's listening online to hear you. You don't need to do anything to it. So I'm gonna ask Mrs. Stevens to come up to the podium. She is a very special student. She would like to introduce and recognize, and I do have a certificate for her, and you've got one.
Thank you, and I have one as well. Thank you very much. As principal at Mount Carmel Elementary, it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Dean Buckave. You want to come on up here, Dean? A principal's worst fear, if I can get through this with a steady voice here, is with all the safety training you have, that you may not be able to act the way you want to in the case of an emergency. But never fear, because fourth graders are here. Isn't that right, Dean? We had a situation at Mount Carmel that was very tenuous. A student was eating snack at the very end of the day, and he was choking and not able to breathe. Dean recognized the problem he was having as he was going toward the substitute teacher who was there that day. And Dean performed the Heimlich and saved him. And we are so grateful. You know, the nurse and I were concerned the next day and wanted to be sure that we weren't recognizing anything hollow or shallow or different or something that wasn't the real way it was. So she and I asked Dean some questions, and I think Dean was afraid he had hurt the other student. Of course, we wanted to know where Dean had learned this, and he had observed an aunt who was in that situation and saw what his uncle did, which saved his aunt. Isn't that correct? Dean's an excellent student, and if there's ever any question as to whether or not we need to practice health and safety, I think Dean's the answer to that. So I'm presenting him with this Principal's Award, which is for extraordinary life-saving action from the school. And here's your medal. You're welcome. And here's a certificate of excellence signed by the superintendent and board members and assistant superintendent. Thank you, Dean, so much.
Marla, can we get a picture over here?
Dean, come on up. We're going to have a... You'll treasure this picture.
There probably is. We got a life-saving award from the governor.
I'll check on it. It is my honor and pleasure, always at this time of the agenda, to recognize our Educator of the Month. And this month, our educator is Mrs. Jean Goins, teacher at Mount Carmel, who is teaching second grade. Mrs. Goins has been teaching in Franklin County for 15 years. She got her elementary ed degree from Miami University, and she was nominated by a parent. The parent was a parent from last year of a student that was online. She spent her entire year teaching second graders via Google, a class computer. So the parent responded, "Jean was amazing when my son was learning from home. She was simply amazing." She keeps the kids learning, and she kept them motivated even when they were at home. As hard as it was, she gave a group of kids purpose and excitement. She is a volunteer at Reach Out Pregnancy Center, a member of the Franklin County Arts Council, and actively involved in her church. We asked Mrs. Goins what she loved about her job, and she said, "The best part of my job is creating a classroom environment where all students feel comfortable and encouraged. I love when a child who thinks she doesn't like to read finds the right book and suddenly doesn't want to stop reading. These light bulb moments are what makes this job rewarding." So congratulations. I'd like to present you with this certificate and a pin. And we've added a new feature. You will be now on the wall. So we'll have May to go for Educator of the Month, and we're doing the same thing for support staff. So, all right, congratulations. We have special guests here with you tonight. I do have the Hubs.
He's fine just right there.
Yep. Okay.
It is my pleasure to recognize April's support staff of the month. And we really don't recognize the great job that Dwayne does, because you only really recognize when you're a principal when things aren't going right. And I never got to know Dwayne till I came over here and actually got to see what he does and how he keeps our fleet always working and never being an issue. And then I got to find out how many other things he does for us. He was nominated by 3 colleagues. When asked why Mr. Murray should be considered for this recognition, they responded, "Dwayne goes above and beyond as a bus mechanic. He's always willing to help out, even outside of work hours. Dwayne maintains a positive attitude, rarely complains about issues that may inconvenience him. He always has the bus driver issues fixed in a timely manner, has willingness to sub for bus drivers, and rarely takes off work. He has a fantastic relationship with the bus drivers, bus aides, and the corporation personnel. Dwayne is very knowledgeable about bus mechanics and always keeps the buses in good working order. He is fantastic." In addition to his role at Franklin County Community School Corporation, he's involved in a Lakeside Cruisers Car Club and Hilltoppers Car Club of Cincinnati. When not at school, Dwayne enjoys restoring classic cars, going to car shows and cruise-ins, and fishing. When asked what the best part of his job is, Dwayne responded, the ability to take something that doesn't work and make it work again. I continue to learn with all the new technology coming out on today's diesel vehicles. We truly appreciate all that you do, Dwayne. Would you like to introduce your guest for the night?
Well, my 2 daughters, a lot of you guys know that. That's my wife, Holly. That's my sister-in-law. You guys may know her. I got another friend back there. Carol, she used to work here.
Well, thank you for everything you do. I greatly appreciate it.
Okay, at this time, the guests, you're free to go unless you want to stay and watch the rest of the board meeting. You're more than welcome to, but if you don't, now's your chance to go.
Good. She's good. Yeah. Getting back into the swing of things. Yep. How are you?
I'll be out soon.
I seem to think they don't like Bob now.
Where'd he go?
Yeah, he's still there.
there until I got my knees, and then I hadn't been out for a while.
Okay, next we have statements from the public. In order to address the board, individuals must sign in prior to the start of the meeting. Individuals that have signed up will be given 3 minutes to speak. A maximum of 5 individuals may address the board regarding the same topic, issue, or concerns. Individuals are asked to avoid repetition and should not be permitted to use names of employees or students. And tonight we have signed up Dr. Brewer, Bob Brewer.
More.
You're it.
I thought I'd have to stand up there real close because you never hear me. I'm not loud enough for you to hear me from way back there. I want to address this issue about the closing of schools, which is natural on the part of the community. My kids and grandkids go to school here, and so it's a big issue to me. One of the things that upset me a little bit, it's nothing personal against any of you, was when, I think it was Lance and Beebe or BB, made their announcement that they thought you might make savings by closing a couple of schools. They said, well, we understand. Yeah, we know how hard that is on you. They don't understand. They don't have a clue. They're not from this community. Their kids don't go to these schools. They have no vested interest in this community. They're just doing a service because that's their job. That's my opinion. Anyway, one of the things that I wanted to mention is that whatever you do, and you'll do the right thing, I'm sure, when it gets that far, be totally transparent and don't have anything off the table that you can't say to the public, even if it's awkward. People appreciate knowing that when you talk to them, you're telling what you believe to be true and what you believe to be the right thing for them to do. The reason I bring that up is because I don't listen to them. They just fall on my ears from time to time. There are so many people that like to gossip and rumor and make a big issue out of one small thing that they're not even sure what they're talking about. Right this moment, I'm doing the same thing in some cases, but I'm just trying to say that in regard to closing the schools, and all of you already know that, it's a bad idea. If you're trying to make savings, there are other ways, and I want to mention just a couple. They're not anything that you don't already know, but I'm reinforcing what I think. One of them that would have, or some of them that would have the same result as closing the schools, and I'm not picking on the school board, this office can be in one of the buildings if you're trying to save on heat and light and so on, and that's really common across the state. Big schools, small schools, corporations, they have their central office in one of the buildings for different reasons. I'd say one of them is because of cost savings, but the other is convenience and so on. You have a beautiful facility here. Wouldn't really want to close it, but we have beautiful schools, and we really don't want to close those either. The other idea that I want to propose for you to look at, not for you to do, think about it, look at it, see what the result is in the schools that are so, have such small enrollments, and that evidently is all of them, think about closing off wings. You don't need to have 200 people spread over a building that's built for 500 or 600 people. So there you are, heating and cooling and maintaining a lot more space than is necessary. The third one, and this is just what came off the top of my head. You could sit down and come up with many more ideas, but one of the things you can do is talk about extending your winter break. If you extend it by 1 week, that's 5 schools that aren't operating, and that's a lot of savings. If you extend it by 2 weeks, then you've got 5 schools. That's essentially 10 schools that are not operating for those 2 weeks in the middle of the winter. So there's more cost savings. As I said, none of those ideas are earth-shattering or going to win me a prize. I'm just saying that amongst all of you and amongst the people in the community, you can come up with ideas before considering closing our local schools. One of the things that I believe in, and there's research to support it, is students do better socially and academically in smaller schools. I experienced that as a student myself. I went from a very small junior high school to high school. Junior high school, I was Mr. Athlete, Mr. Academic. Went from a school with about 300 students to a school with 3,200 students. Didn't know anybody, was lost, didn't like school. I saw the difference in this little school where I knew everybody, and everybody knew me. The teachers knew me, the other students knew me. It made a big difference in my education and the way I perceived school. Actually, at 16, I just as well as dropped out of school. I'm glad I didn't, because I had the best job in the world when I worked at Laurel. But I just didn't fit in that huge school. And I was used to being, everybody knew me and that kind of thing. So, is there anything else I wanted to say? There's a lot of things I would like to say, but I wrote this down so I wouldn't go off on tangents, because I do that, don't I? Yeah. Anyway, I'll be happy to support whatever the school board comes up with. But like the other people in the community, I want to be sure that I have all the facts, that you can tell me, well, we considered closing that office, but then after we did this and this, and it just didn't fly. We considered extending winter break by 1 week or 2 weeks, and boy, that would have been a big savings, but because of this and this, we just couldn't do it. Or we may find that, we've talked about that before, and you have, but it may be time to revisit that, and just see what you come up with, different people, a different time. It may be help the problem, and I think everybody knows that your situation is real and it is dire, but also the community's feelings about their schools are real. And so, anyway, thank you for letting me go on, and I could talk all night, but I know you have things to do, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And for the people that doesn't know Dr. Brewer, he's a longtime educator and was an administrator out at Laurel Elementary School for a long time.
Well, I had a good
And
job.
done an
here.
awesome job.
Family came along and bumped me out of it, and I had to retire.
And he's also the reason I'm sitting here today.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one is the superintendent's report.
Just an update on solar. As you know, at our last board meeting, the board approved solar to the middle school and the high school, pending legal review. Legal review has been done. Mr. Gill, after the legal review, came in and signed the agreement, so Sun Funded can move forward. They anticipate this week the interconnection agreement will be filed with Duke. We had a couple of engineers from Sun Funded on site a week ago with Dennis, looking at the utilities and where the power comes in the buildings. Did a walkthrough, that type of thing. They're working on the single line drawings, and once those are done, they'll share those with us. So the next step would be when Duke approves that interconnection agreement, they will be working with a construction and a finance side of things. So all of that has to happen. And I hope, they want that happened by May 30th. Once that happened, we'll get an additional update. So they're moving along pretty quickly right now. So we'll be in, when Kelly was here and he was talking about groups, and he hopes that we could squeeze in group 3, I believe it was. We did get in time. So he will be doing all 3 campuses at Indiana Wesleyan, Franklin County Community Schools, and I believe there is one school in Michigan that will be in that group. So it's moving forward.
And they think they're gonna hear back from Duke in that time?
That's what
Seems
their hope
pretty
is.
aggressive.
It is. They had to file that by April 15th. That's what, about 6 weeks? I think they're hopeful. As I talk and pretty much text with Kelly every day, or at least have a conversation or email. So he's been very good with communication, and the meeting with Dennis went well. So we'll wait and see what happens. So the second one, just discussion only. COVID-19, I just wanted to make everybody aware that I did archive everything on the school website. No longer taking attendance. I haven't done that for quite some time. I believe it's been a very, very long time since we've had a positive. I believe we had one last week, and we haven't had any for weeks. So we are obviously in a good position. So all of that's come down, but it is archived. And if that situation would change, I'll bring it back up and we'll track the data. But right now, I don't see a need of putting zeros there unless something would change. So, and it's not on here, but I do want to give you an additional update on kindergarten pre-registration. I know I emailed the board over the weekend. We've had some late entries. So right now, new students at Mount Carmel, we're looking at 24. Laurel's looking at 23, and the elementary is looking at 68. We do anticipating a few students being retained, so those numbers will change. We're at about 121 with retained. So we're about 48 less than we were this time last year. So we'll keep communicating and advertising, and if any parent makes an appointment, we'll definitely have them come in and pre-register prior to school being out. So I'll have a truer sense of those numbers before summer break.
Do we have a comparison against last year's?
This is
Numbers
actually
this time?
probably higher than it was this time last year, yes.
So we get a lot later in the year.
We did this year,
before.
or for this school year, if I'm not mistaken, the last week or two before school started, the elementary, we had a mass influx of over 20 students enroll. Hence, we added a teacher late in the game. So, you know.
Do we have any sense for why that is? Is it people just missing the word? Is it people moving in? I know it's really hard for you to plan when we get that mass influx. Is there a way that we
It's
can,
all the above.
or we as a
little bit.
board can help get that word out or anything? I don't know.
I mean, I think the buildings did a great job of getting that word out. You know, every parent got a letter. I know every parent got an email, and it was advertised in their own school newsletters, etc. So, like I said, if there's someone that moves into the community and they come to enroll, we'll obviously adjust.
We'll send Francis out with baked goods
Yeah.
to deliver to their house. And
That's a great idea. You'll have to drive though. I can't see one with the drive.
Write myself a note. I think that's it.
Okay, old business, the 2022-2023 high school student handbook changes.
This is old business, so this would have been presented at the last board meeting. Mrs. Gilman was here, Dean of Students, presenting the high school student handbook changes. So we're asking approval of those tonight.
Any discussion on those changes? Need a motion? Ms. Wasilowski and Ms. Holman. Second. All in favor by raising your hand. Any opposed, same sign? 1 opposed. Terry. Okay.
Mr. Bundy was here, the last board meeting presenting proposed changes to the middle school student handbook, asking for approval tonight for that as well.
All right, any discussion on the middle school handbook changes? If not, I need a motion. Ms. Wasilowski and Ms. Holman, second. All in favor by raising your hand. 6-0, and any opposed? Mr. Bryant? Okay. Okay, new business. Superintendent's contract. As president of Franklin County School Community, let me start over. As president of the Franklin County Community School Corporation Board of School Trustees, I recommend that we approve the contract to Ms. Tammy Chavis, superintendent. There is no change to the base salary, and the contract will run July 1, 2022 to June 30th, 2025. Any discussion? Yes.
We don't know what's gonna happen with our, inflation. We don't know what's gonna happen with, whatever's gonna happen with the price of things and so forth. I would like for this, 3-year contract to have language that we can open up a, salary change on her contract, if that's possible.
We'll review every year.
Yes, you can.
But I want that in the minutes that, that is something that we can do.
You want that reflected.
Yes.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I think Tammy's had a baptism by fire introduction to becoming a superintendent. She's done remarkably well, and given the landscape of what she's had to deal with, and I think she's deserving of this contract.
Okay. Any more discussion? I need a recommendation. Ms. Wasilowski and Ms. Foster. All in favor, raise your hand. 7-0. Okay, a board policy review. Ms. Chavis?
Yes, I just threw a few at you tonight because
Which
I ain't
include,
doing
sorry,
all of them. So,
which enclosure number is this?
what's that?
6, thank you, sir.
I'm sorry. So this is discussion only. We'll go over policy and approve it at the next board meeting. So on the corporation website, you'll notice that the old board policy was a Google Doc. It's down. And Neola board policy's gone back up. So everything that we approve will be added to that, and it will grow as a huge document. So right now, all the 0000s bylaws have been approved by you, and they are now on the website. And if there was something, as I looked through board policy, there was something on complimentary tickets. I'm assuming for athletic events, if you are a former board member, those types of policies, obviously, I didn't bring them back for board approval, but those are in there. So those were added. So anything in board policy that was there that wasn't a Neola or Indiana Code or anything of that nature that the previous boards prior to you have approved, those were added. And I will do that as we go through. And if there's something that I feel like needs to be revised or discussed, I'll bring that to the board as well. But there were a few unique policies to Franklin County that are there. So, and if you see something that looks wrong, it's not a hard process to get that revised, so. Okay. We're moving on to the 1000s. The first one is 1100, and it's just talking about corporation organization, and the responsibility shall flow from the superintendent through the administrative staff to the operational personnel. No employee should be responsible to more than one supervisor, and it's the board's intent to maintain an operation and technical staff with a high level of competence. So that's really just talking about the organization from top down. The last statement on there, it's X. On occasion, the superintendent may find it necessary to hire outside consultants, which we have done with Chad and Lantern BB. We're going to do that with transportation, etc. So we do bring in individuals with the expertise every now and then. Any questions on that one? 1130 is the conflict of interest. You as a board had a conflict of interest in the previous batch of policies that we approved. This one applies to all corporation employees that they have a duty to perform with integrity as well. Option 2, it's talking about accepting any gift or gratuity. So any employee or agent making a recommendation to the board shall not accept any kind of gift or gratuity or personal property. I think this was a long one. And it's the exact same policy that you approved. So if you want to take a look at that, if there's anything that stands out that we need to discuss, we can do that as well. I need to turn this off. Any questions on the conflict of interest?
Does the drafting note stay in the final policy?
What's that? Does
the drafting note stay in the final policy, or does that get dropped out?
It'll get dropped out.
Okay.
One, 200 administrator ethics. It's talking about the board expects all administrators to maintain high standards, and there's A through H. Such things as represent accurately their qualifications. If they're applying for a job, everything that's on that resume is accurate. Confidence, confidentiality. Refrain from using their position for any political or religious purpose. The second half of that is pulled from the American Association of School Administrators, and it's also statement of ethics. So you can read through that, and that's talking about honesty, integrity, obeying any kind of state or national or local law, implementing board policies, avoiding using their position for any kind of personal gain, those kinds of standards. Any questions on that one? 1214 is staff gifts. So obviously, as a school board and a superintendent, we're discouraging the presentation of gifts to administrators. I think from time to time, if we have a retiring administrator, we do give gifts to those that have given their service. Most of the time, they've been in this corporation for a very long time. The staff as a group is honoring them in that way. We're not accepting any compensation from vendors. Compensation may include any cash checks, gifts.
Microwaves.
What's that?
Microwaves?
Microwaves,
Like we have to
right?
put microwaves in this
Right.
policy?
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why they list examples. Yeah, because I read that today. I'm like,
Maybe somebody got one.
you know, tickets are probably something that would be attractive. Travel, monetary. Those are the things that I think stand out to me. I'm not really sure whether microwave came into play, but
The Ferrari's okay.
right, the Ferrari's okay, right. And option 2, I believe that's there because it's Indiana code. Any corporation employee making a recommendation shall not accept a gift or gratuity from a person that has any kind of personal interest in the decision that's being made. It's not any different than what we approved for the board, so now we're moving on to administrators. Employment of the superintendent, obviously, you know, there's a process. This is 1220. The initial contract for any superintendent cannot be more than 3 years, but it may be extended not more than an additional 5 years beyond the term of the original contract. There can be a buyout clause, which are in some contracts, some there are not. But it cannot be any more than one salary year in a maximum of $250,000. The contract between the board and the superintendent may not provide for awarding monetary bonus or other incentives that is based on the approval of a public question, referring to a referendum. So you can't incentivize a superintendent because a referendum was passed. The board will actively seek the best candidate. That could be aided by, obviously, board members, professional consultants. School Boards Association does, and most of Ball State or Indiana State would do a superintendent search as well, or you could use counsel. So the process on page 2, at least 7 days before a contract is entered into, there must hold a public meeting. We held a public meeting quite a long time ago. A notice of that hearing was published in the newspaper, and it was published on our corporation's website along with the proposed contract. In that notice, we gave the date, time, and place, and the details of the contract. And all contracts must have the terms, salary, benefits, and other matters that the board agrees to. And the last part of this is relatives of the superintendent may be employed, provided the staff member being employed is not placed in a position in which the staff member would be supervised directly by the superintendent. So we do have, obviously, spouses that work in the same corporation, but it's very specific that the superintendent cannot be the supervisor. The direct supervisor, that would be the building principal. And the next page, option F. So in this one, I have checked, and we can debate this if you'd like. The corporation employee and supervisor subordinate may have a relationship, but like I said, they can't report directly to that person. And then there's some notes. I checked most of those options. I believe that relationship is fine as long as it doesn't have a negative impact on the work or interferes with the corporation culture. If it does, I think those individuals should be subject to discipline, including termination, adverse workplace behavior, if those relationships are causing issues. I think that is grounds for termination, and any misstatement of a fact for employment or the determination of his or her salary will be considered by the board to constitute grounds for his or her dismissal. The contract may be altered. I think this is what you were referring to, Beth, or rescinded for a new one at any time by mutual consent of the governing board and the superintendent. So it doesn't necessarily have to be this time next year. It could be at any time that the board chooses to do that. That's a lot in that, but most of it's Indiana code, and most of it we just went through with my contract. And 1230, responsibilities of superintendent. There's more than that what's listed here, but Neola has listed probably the most important. So you can look through those. If you'd like me to add additional ones, we can. But the last one, perform other duties as the board may direct. So I think that covers them all. So you can look at that. And the last one is 1231, outside activities of administrators. Administrators should avoid situations in which their personal interests, activities, and associations conflict with the interests of the corporation. They may not dedicate work time to any of the, outside interest or activity. They can't use school property to solicit. May not engage in any kind of business transaction, and they cannot campaign on school property, on any political issue, or candidate for local, state, or national office. And administrators should refrain from expressions that disrupt the efficient operation of the school. So like I said, we're going through administrative. We will get to other personnel as well, and it'll be a blanket statement for them as well. So this is applying to administrators. We'll do the same for teachers and support staff as well once we get to that. But I believe, Terry, you've talked about having this type of policy before, about the political piece. So there it is. So that was a few.
Any
policies.
discussion? Okay, we'll move on to legislative update. Mr. Reeves.
No update.
Okay. I would like to tell everyone that's listening that if you contacted any of the legislators regarding the bills that has come forward and that did not represent the schools in a fair manner, we thank you. And don't stop. You have to continue getting the issues and finding out what's good for the schools and what's not good for them. And please pass it along to anybody you know that contacting your representative is the best way to make change. So, thank you very much. Okay, future agenda request. Okay, recognition and acknowledgement. We have one from the Gilmans. It says to central office and board members, thank you from the bottom of, thank you for the beautiful blanket. It means very much to Mike and myself. My sister was my best friend and a great person. She will be missed. Sincerely, Mike and Helen Gilman, Franklin County Middle School. And this adjourns the school board meeting. Next school board meeting is Monday, May 9th at